Morning, everybody. Jim Fergal, and welcome to the Friday workNet DuPage Virtual Job Club. And ironically, today we're going to be talking about virtual and video interviews because this seems to be the norm right now. We're going to do some administrative announcements first. On the call today, of course, myself, I'm the manager of Job Seeker and Veteran Services and the facilitator of the Job Club. And Siobhan Morris and Jennifer Wigeman are workshop facilitators and our job coaches.
Hello, everyone.
Morning, Julie. Put everything, if you have questions or anything, just put it in the Q&A today. We're not going to do chat. We're going to do Q&A. So I want to do some poll questions from you. And the first one that I want to know about is, where are you from? And okay, let me make sure. Go ahead and start voting if you would, please. And then, are you working with workNet DuPage? This is for my info. I always like to see the demographics, especially as the economy is, depends who you're listening to. I was on a job club with Paul Cameron yesterday, and they had a job club facilitator down in Dallas, Texas, and they're doing a lot of hiring. Up here, we have people getting hired, getting laid off. But as always, the economy is in a state of flux. Okay. No one outside the USA today. Used to. Okay, so some of you are filled out the application, some of you working with a counselor, and today is the first time where you're just coming to the job club. Okay, well, that's cool. So we can see DuPage County has got most of the most everyone's here from DuPage County. About 25 of you are only attending Job Club. I'll explain what we do in a little bit if you're interested in participating in our program. And then, okay, good number of you are working with a counselor. Cool. All righty. So, did the poll question. So we are, workNet DuPage is a job training program, and we're funded for the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. All righty. And it is grant funded by Congress. So you do have to qualify. But every Tuesday, we have a layoff to launch workshop. And you can join this and see if you qualify under the various grants. I always say attend, fill out the application to see if you qualify. If you've been laid off from a job, there's a lot of different qualifications. But when in doubt, apply. We have grants up to $10,000. We have everything from Agile Scrum, PMP, medical assistant. Let's see what else. CDLA is big right now. The licenses for truck drivers, stuff's starting to move again, so that's cool. But please attend, and you can sign up through our website, worknetdupage.org. CCNP, Saki is a possibility. Again, your counselors can tell you what programs are fundable and which ones are not. They have to be, we do certification training, quick and up to, I don't know, we don't do degrees and stuff like that. We do quick certifications because we want to get you into the job market as quickly as possible. Okay. Some Zoom etiquette. In the Q&A, please be courteous of everyone, everyone's views. I encourage you, if you have questions or comments about anything I say, please put them in the Q&A. I will answer them. I will take a break probably halfway through for any questions, but feel free if there's something I say or you have a comment or something that interests you or you have a question about, just put it in the Q&A. Alrighty? Mute all microphones, and then my goal is to really help all of you understand what's going on in the job search, the job market, and especially today's presentation is about the new economy and the new way of interviewing. Alrighty. So the presentation will be recorded. It does take a while to download it from Zoom, edit it, and things like that. So probably beginning of next week, it'll be on our website at worknetdupage.org. And then you can view it. As by the way, you can view all of our past job clubs for the last, gosh, since April, we've been doing these. The only one we didn't have was last week with Connor because we had some malfunctions going on. So unfortunately that one, which was probably a good one, we weren't able to record. Sorry about that. So today we're going to talk about virtual and video interviews. Seems to be the norm now. We're Zooming all over the place. What I'm going to do is talk about the two different types of interviews. The video, which a lot of you probably are doing with your online assessments or applications, and then also the virtual interviews. We'll talk about setting up a good work area, and then also, oops, I'm sorry, this mouse is like sensitive, how to prepare for the interview and then the conduct of the interview. Okay, I got some more poll questions here, and let's see what I've got next. Let's see. I don't want that. Excuse me. And for some reason, it's not letting me up. I'm going to ask you. Let's just forget it. Here's the poll question. How many of you have had video recorded interviews where you're filling out an assessment and they ask you, or maybe they send you a recorded, some person asking you questions. And that's usually through HireVue or SharePoint. I mean, anyway, just put in the Q&A, how many of you have had a video recorded interview? Okay. Any of you? Okay, some of you have, some of you hadn't. I know there's no chat. We haven't put a chat in today. Just trying to keep things simple. Okay, some of you are nervous about it when it happens. Okay, that's what we're going to talk about today, is how to get yourself under control here, okay? The best that you can when you're doing an interview. How many of you have had a Zoom or Skype interview? Anyone? And if you've had Skype or Zoom, just go ahead and type Skype or Zoom in there. Michelle was talking about, I had one the other day. It was terrible because the platform they used kept breaking up. Yeah, it's really important that you find the right setting. I do all my Zooming, all the Zoom presentations in my basement. I don't do them from work because there's too many people on. And like Javon just got kicked out. So sometimes it depends the location of where you're at. So I get that, Michelle. Anyone else? Ooh. Asynchronous, separately recorded. Yeah. Okay, Chris. Ooh, so this is all new for a lot of you. Not yet, just phone. Okay. Okay, Michelle, you've had both over the last 3 months. Skype, Zoom, Teams, okay, Skype. I'm just reading this off for everybody. Zoom, got a Zoom interview, Zoom. Zoom seems to be popular. You know, those people that started Zoom just became billionaires. Skype. Is there a difference between Skype and Zoom? I think they're essentially the same. Skype is used for business. Zoom is commercial. You know, it's open to everybody. Facebook Messenger. That's kind of interesting. Didn't think about that. Mock interviews on Zoom. Employer attempted Zoom, but there were problems. It ended up on the phone. Victoria. Zoom, it was not good. Go to meeting. Yeah, that was terrible. Melva. Joe, you've only had phone interviews so far. Michelle, okay, you said the person interviewing you, it was his connection. He will call if it stops working altogether. Kind of hard to keep your cool, isn't it, when all this is happening? Cisco WebEx, Jack Rogers, okay. Team meetings, no interview though. Okay. Brenda, I'll go over the grant again, but I'll go to our website and click on the Get Started. And it's all going to depend on how many people are going in. After this meeting, I would hit Get Started to apply for the grant. Go to meeting. Actually, Skype is Microsoft more personal. The Teams is more business app. Yeah. I have to admit, I do like Teams. And since we've been doing remote, I find it much easier for me to communicate with my team. Because when we're in the office, someone's always on the phone, someone's with somebody, hard to get everyone together, but you can at least set up a time and then everyone's there and you get to see everyone at once, especially since half of us are remote and half of us are in the office on any given day. So thank you, everybody. So let's get into this. The video recorded interview, you have HireVue, Smart Hire, are two of the big names. Used early in the process. What I've seen with people, actually my sons had to go through this, both of them, is they will call you and say, hey, we're going to be sending you a video recorded interview. And you get 2 or 3 shots to practice, and then you have to press record. Answers can be anywhere from 90 seconds to 3 minutes, and you get to play it over again. HireVue, I'm not sure about Spike Hire, but definitely HireVue gives you, tells you how to set up your computer, test it out to make sure it's ready for when you do the interview. And then it also gives you some practice times, types of questions. So the virtual interviews have been Skype, Zoom, Uber Conference, Cisco WebEx, things like that. I'm sorry. And what's nice about this is that it lets employers and candidates meet live. They get to see you in person. and interacts, with video, instant messaging, all that great call. You can have multiple people um, on the call together. You can see all their reactions. You can open up the little web boxes, the picture boxes, and it's going to be important that you have a good first impression. So for both of these, the video recorded and the virtual interview is going to be about setting and having presence. How do you present yourself? How do you dress? And things like that. As a matter of fact, my older son, he was interviewed by a company, and it was like a 4-day process. And they called him, the HR person, briefed him on what he had to do. He had to take an assessment. They called him again. The HR person spent an hour with him talking about how do you do a virtual, a behavioral interview. And then they sent him the recorded one, and he had to do that. My younger son got hired just as everything was closing down with COVID. He had an interview. He was supposed to fly out to San Francisco. I'm sorry, this mouse is like crazy. He was supposed to fly out to San Francisco, and it stopped. Then they did virtual, where they Zoomed or Skyped. He interviewed with several people, and then he was onboarded and trained virtually as well. And what was interesting, according to him, is that one of the people didn't have a picture on the screen, so I couldn't see him because it was black. The picture doing the presentation, the person doing the presentation, but he could see everything my son Mark was doing. And if Mark looked away or something, he would go, "Mark, pay attention." So that's kind of weird. You feel like you're in 1984 or something bizarre. So let's look at the setting. It's best if you get your desk organized behind you. Make sure there's no clutter on the desk, no clutter behind you. Have a nice, clear background. And by the way, when I was on the Zoom call with Paul Cameron's Job Club yesterday, a lot of people put their pictures up. You could see their backgrounds and stuff. And if you're going to do that, don't be lounging, don't be chewing gum. One lady was walking from one room to the other with her laptop, and it's shaking like an earthquake. And if you're doing a Zoom or something, you can put a nice background behind you, to block out everything else. If you can't, make sure that everything behind you is fine, that you got the right setting. I had to move to several places in my house to find the right setting for me. Let's see, what else do we have here? Quiet room. My son, actually, both my sons, I would leave and we'd have no distractions. They would go downstairs or go to their rooms to conduct the interviews. No spouse, kids, pets, phones, TVs, music or radio, especially music or radio playing, because ironically, that will pick up louder than you talking. Good lighting, natural is better. You want some light in front of you, not behind you. You don't want raccoon eyes, is what I call it. All righty. So interview tips. The first thing is you have to know who you are. And I would go so far as to say you have to know the company as well. But who are you? And what's your story? And how does this relate to the position you are applying for? Do your research on the interviewer. Do your research on the company. Go to their web page, go to their LinkedIn page, see if you have connections there. You can also look them up on LinkedIn. It's okay, you can do that. You can either do it in the open mode or you can do private mode if you don't want them to know. But chances are they're probably looking at you as well. Tie yourself to the position. What that means is you've read the job description. You look at what the skills are and the duties, roles that they want you to play, authority issues, and then you come up with experiences that relate to those. Alrighty, and that's how you tie yourself to the position. You have to use their terms as well. And the other thing is look for companies that match you. The job search has a tendency to be, we all do, is reactive. We're hoping jobs open up that fit us perfectly. And, you know, there's a lot of times, you know, you're trying to fit a round peg in a rectangle or hole or parallelogram into a square. You know, not to get too geometric with you, but, you know, you get what I'm saying, is we're trying to fit into something that may not be us. And there's books out there. The one, I was trying to get this author in, Steve Dalton, to talk about the 2-hour job search. And he talks about identifying 40 companies you want to work for or industry that you want to work in. 2-hour job search by Steve Dalton. Unfortunately, he teaches at a college, and he's got a heavy curriculum load and taking some upbeat stuff. I'm sorry, this mouse, if I move, it moves. But look for companies and positions that interest you. I took a lot of jobs just because, and they weren't good fits. I knew they weren't going to be good fits, but because I was desperate, I took those jobs. So trying to fit into something I knew I wasn't. I always gave it my best shot, I have to say that. And I always looked at, even if I wasn't successful by that company's terms, I looked at what did I learn, what did I accomplish while I was there. Because those things, the experience that I had in sales, I'm using today, ironically. Okay, let's talk about preparing. Print off that job description. I do. I find it easier, or if you just want to keep it on a Word doc, you can use the highlight. You can use different colors to highlight skills, duties, outcomes, things like that. Look at the different skills they want. What are the technical skills, job skills, tools, interpersonal? Do they want you to lead a team? Do they want you to perform testing? Do they want you to use a lathe or milling machine, something like that? And then go through your work history and pick up what skills that you have used that relate. Now, sometimes, you know, like some software or things like that, you might have an older version. It's just a matter of picking it up. Or maybe you can take an online class through Coursera or go to LinkedIn and use Linda. Now, I believe in writing out your stories. And I know this takes time, and I'm someone who likes to wing it a lot. But really what I found is that by writing out the stories, it makes it concrete and gives me a format that I can present in the interview without getting lost in the weeds or going down rabbit holes. So let's go into the storytelling format. Gosh, I'm sorry. The storytelling format is, what's the setting? What's the company? What the position was that you were in? I use problem, action, result. You can use CAR, you can use SAR, you can use SOAR. I don't care. But essentially, I believe there was a problem that needed to be solved. You were called to action, and there were certain results. What was the problem? And how did you get involved? Was it assigned to you? Were you at the front desk and some angry customer came in? Maybe you were a supervisor. You were called in to deal with the supervisor, but you want to know all that. How did you get involved with leading the team? Did you pick your team members, or were they picked for you? What actions did you have to take? Did you have to get the team to gel? How did you deal with the different personalities? What happened if you were working on a machine and then you found that it was, you know, thousandth of a millimeter off or something. All these different things. And then the results. How did it end up? And this is important: dollars, numbers, and percentages. How many people did you supervise? Did you help win the contract? Did you retain a major player that was ready to book out of here? Let's see what else. But dollars, I mean, think about it. Why are employers in business? To make money. So anytime you can come up with any example that makes or saves them money, you are talking their terms, and then that also ties you to the position. Another thing you can do is at the end of your story is, and this is what I learned in an interview. I had a young HR person interviewing me, and then the manager and the director of the program that had hired me and seen my work. So as I was describing an accomplishment, both the manager and the director were smiling and their heads were nodding yes. But the HR person, she was like deer in the headlights. And so I figured I've lost her, so I cut to the chase and said, you know what? Here are the skills I used in this experience that I believe, based on what this position requires, would help me be successful. So I had to pull out and really identify for that HR person, here are the certain skills. And that's how you tie yourself to the position. I have a foam board sitting in front of me. I will show you examples of that momentarily. I like foam boards because they're sturdy. Poster boards are too flexible. Foam boards have a nice stiffness to them. You can tape stuff. I use painter's tape so it doesn't mark up the board. And then I change it every workshop that I do. You have your resume, job description, any information about the company, any highlighted skills, and accomplishment stories. So I'm going to say this is a typical desk. Here you can have, well, let's start with the camera. You can put a post-it note right at the camera that says, look here. And I was just reading the other day, put a picture of a person so that you have someone to look at, especially if it's a video recorded or a picture yourself, just something. Because you always want to look at the camera, watch the news. You notice that the people on the news are always trying to make eye contact with the camera, because that's how they connect with the audience. It's the same thing for you. Even me, I have a tendency to be looking down at the screen to see what's going on, but I always have to look up. Starting over here in the lower left-hand corner, any information about the company, any information about people, any information you find about LinkedIn, any connections you may have with them. Oh, by the way, do you know so-and-so? Put your resume up here. I would highlight any skills or any experiences that you want to talk about. Over here, you can have the job description. And then over here, you can highlight, you see how I've underlined certain skills, analytical skills, take on more responsibilities, whatever they want to talk about. Technical skills over here, do they want you to Agile Scrum? Are they looking for PMP? Are they looking for Excel? Both work skills, technical skills, and even soft skills, interpersonal skills. And then skill example stories, as well as accomplishment stories, result stories. Always let them know what was the position of the company. So many times when I interview job seekers, either for the workshops or when I'm interviewing people myself, is that they start off with, yeah, there was this time we had this customer, and I'm like, oh, what company were you at? What was your position? So you want to start off with that, and then you go problem, action, result. Now, one of the job seekers I'm going to say about 6 months ago, he wrote out all his stories. So whenever he interviewed, he would lay his stories out on his desk. He had them written on paper or something, and he knew which stories he wanted to talk about for the interview. So he had them right there. And even the best telemarketers and stuff like that always have their scripts ready. Have your stories ready. You know, you're not limited to one or two. As many stories as you can come up with. I know younger job seekers or younger people that have interviewed for positions with me don't have as many stories to tell. But they've always gone back to find some portion of their original story that will relate to the question that I asked them, because there's stories inside of stories. So if you have the main story written out, it reacquaints you with the whole experience from beginning to end, and that you are ready for follow-on questions, or can pick something out of a story and say, well, in this previous example that I talked about, you can, I use this skill. Okay. These were my first Zoom classes, Zoom workshops. This is my desk in my dining room that I set up. Who uses encyclopedias? So I use them to prop up my computer. Notice I have a clock on the side because when I first started doing Zoom, we had to keep it to 45 minutes until we got the paid version. So I kept a clock there. You can see the foam board behind the computer. I typed it up high above the computer so that all I had to do was look up. There's a lot of times if I found myself talking too much or something, I could quickly look up and see where I was at in the presentation, and then look at the clock and say, okay, I got so much time left. I would have my intro and my exit on there as well. You can see that I had a microphone that I plugged in, or you know, your laptop has a microphone as well. Something like that. You know, and you know, I would lower the shades when I was presenting. Okay. Any questions on this? And feel free to ask any questions. So, how about interviews when you must be on video? And this is from Renato. And 3 or 4 people on the other end interviewing you are not on video. It feels a bit awkward. Exactly. You know, you can't see them. And that's why having a picture or a couple of pictures up on top of by the camera would help you, because otherwise you're talking to a blank wall. Upender, you're asking with online searches, how important is the cover letter? You know, HR could care less. Me as a hiring manager, I like to read them because there's a lot of times I get people from different industries applying for jobs here, and I would like to know how they fit. And I've interviewed people because of the cover letters. It doesn't have to be long. But cover letters connect you to the position, especially since a lot of people, and this is, I'm adamant about this, you have to tailor your resume to the position in the company. And because so many people don't, they just send out the old generic resume like in the old days. And then HR doesn't know how you fit. You haven't changed the job title to match, and then you're going to get lower on the applicant tracking system rating scale. And you know, HR will pull you up and say, well, how does this person fit and why are they applying? The cover letter can help with that. Let's see. I've heard that there was access to free courses if you're in unemployment. You have to, this is from Africa, you have to go to IllinoisWorkNet.com. and you have access to Coursera courses. Linda likes the foam board. Yeah, I have found the foam board really works good. I've also used cardboard cutouts. You can see where I actually initially had big screenshots, and now I use 9 slides per, so I can quickly see, because I'm pretty much that gives me an idea where you're at. How do I attach my foam board to stand up like that? Well, you see how I have all the encyclopedias in front? I have the rest of the encyclopedias in back to make it stand up straight. The other thing that I've done is, now that I'm in my basement, I have my board up against the wall, propped up, and just leaning backwards a little so it doesn't fall on top of me. Okay. Any tips for virtual group interviews? We'll get to that in a moment, and if I don't, please bring that up again. What about using a headset? Sure. You can use a headset to hear. I know when we're having Teams, if there's background noise and stuff like that, one of our social media person puts her earbuds in or whatever. Is it okay to have pictures of your family in the background if the pictures are on the wall? You could, but remember, they can't ask you about your family. So it's up to you. Actually, I have all my son's guitars behind me on the wall, and that's why I always have the workNet DuPage logo behind me when I'm doing Zoom. What are some what are some buying signals on Zoom that you can gauge if the employer is interested? Any nonverbal clues you can pick up? Let's talk about that in a little bit. Hairstyle, Tina. Tell you what, comb it. Have a nice hairstyle. I know that barbers and hairstylists and the salons weren't open, but you can make yourself look presentable. And that's one of the things that I saw yesterday, and that we've seen sometimes when we're doing our Zoom or any of our workshops, is people don't dress, they're lounging. I'm actually leaning into the computer, one, so that you can hear me, but two, that gives me a little bit more energy. Alrighty. I don't have much hair, so I don't have to worry about that, but I do worry about shaving when I'm doing a Zoom presentation, and I do make sure I shave part of my head so that I don't have wild hair sticking out all over. Eyebrows is another thing you can trim. You don't want to look like Andy Rooney with your eyebrows going every which way. Comb your hair, make yourself look nice. This is an interview. This is your first impression, and these virtual and video interviews are coming up all the time. Let's see if there's anything else on here. What about stuff on LinkedIn? I keep being told to do a LinkedIn audit. I have such a hard time keeping up with LinkedIn. You know, that's from Michelle. I get that with LinkedIn. Actually, I hadn't updated my profile in a while, and I was reading some, especially since we've gone remote, and I changed my whole LinkedIn profile, and I started putting in Zoom, Uber conference to show the technical skills, because I was reading an article about why people don't, why baby boomers have a hard time getting jobs, people over 50 or 55. And it's because they haven't adapted technology. And so I put on my profile, and you can go to my profile, you can link in with me. I don't, certainly will. I prefer if you send me a personalized LinkedIn of, and if you're on the phone, go to the 3 dots or more, and it'll say you can make a personal LinkedIn. But because of reading that article, I redid my whole profile, my summary, and then added new tech skills that I've learned. Because one of the questions, and Mark Cuban had this, it was on CNBC website, is one of the companies they're going to, one of the company questions that they'll ask you is, what have you been doing to upgrade your skills during the pandemic? So certainly you can go to Coursera, you can go to LinkedIn, you can talk about learning Zoom, Uber Conference, WebEx, GoToMeeting. Put stuff down there that you're on, because it shows that you're up to date, you've adapted to stuff. Okay, I am going to go back a few slides here because someone wrote, Sherry, let me go over this, who's this, Zaki. Put some company information down. Your resume goes up here. Have the job description written out. Highlighted skills, technical skills, and have a couple examples of stories. These stories can be on 3x5 cards or 5x7, just enough so that you can have problem, action, result, and the company name and position, and any tie-in. Just something real quick that you can look at. Can you put backdrops on when you don't pay for Zoom? Yes, I did. When you go into the to the video, there's a place for backgrounds. And I learned this from, of all places, techrepublic.com. Gave you some cheat sheets of how to do this. What you can do is if you have pictures in your phone or pictures on your computer, you can upload them into the backgrounds and then you can use them. I've had castles, I've had the Aurora Borealis moving in the background. So you can put some neat stuff back there. But you know, if you got a messy house, you want a background or a nice wall, alrighty? I think Tim Murphy had a nice picture behind him in his office. Okay. Should we wear a suit during a phone interview? You know what? Or business casual is enough when interviewing for a technical managerial post? That's a tough question. My older son, the guitar player, he put on a suit, shirt and tie and a suit coat and gym shorts. And I was like, you know, dress completely if you're doing a video interview. And he's like, why? They're only going to see me from the chest up. But what you want, and this is a psychological thing, is you want to feel good about yourself. So you wear clothes that make you feel good. And if I was doing, especially cold calling, when I got out of the Army and came back to the States, I put my suit on every day that I was on the phone. Because it got me in the professional frame of mind. So let's go to the next part of the question. Business casual, or is business casual enough if you're interviewing for a technical managerial role? That's going to depend on the company. And again, this is where your research goes in. If you can talk to a company, if you know someone who's been in that company, if you go to their website, you can see how they dress. A lot of companies now are putting virtual tours on their website, and you can walk around the company virtually, and you can see how they dress. I always say dress nice, because that first impression, it's hard to recover from a bad one. CNC's Keith O says, the first audience for the cover letter is you. Write your first attempt telling your story with relevant references to the position. Sure. And that's Chris. Not all computers support virtual backgrounds without a green screen. Okay. Thank you. Who's that? Mike McCarthy. Let's see. You need high-end computer for course to do virtual background. Thank you. I'm not a techie. I just know what my laptop had. Li Ping. Okay. All righty. Again, we're not in the chat room. Anything needs to go into Q&A. Okay, I'm going to move on and get into the interview itself. This is important. Check your equipment. Check your battery, speakers. Make sure you're plugged in. You can have a headset, microphone. Usually when you go onto Zoom or, like yesterday I was waiting, I was going on a webinar, and while I was waiting, I checked my speakers and everything so I could hear. It's important to check your Wi-Fi connection. This is why I do it from home. In the office, I noticed when I'm on Teams, some of the people in the office break up, their screen freezes. If you don't, if you're getting feedback that your screen is frozen or something, try to find a better place in the house or wherever you are at in the office. Check the webcam, call someone, ask them, Zoom with someone, get their feedback of how they view you. And do a trial one, have someone ask you questions. Words, tone of voice, body language, attire, all of these go together. What you focus on is going to affect your body language, which affects your tone of voice, which then affects the words you choose. But I believe your attire will also affect your body language. If you're dressed like a bum, you have a tendency to talk like one. Dress up nicely. Our clothes, except when it's 95 to 100 degrees out, have a tendency to cover up 95% of our body, especially when we're at the office. So it's important for you, and remember what I said, I used to wear a suit when I was doing cold calls. When I was doing recruiting or sales, one company required me to wear a suit and tie, and the other one I just did because, I'm sorry. So, but I felt better, I felt more confident on the phone. To me, it was my uniform, it was my armor, it would help me face battle on the phone. Your body language, smile, it's important, sit up straight, look into the camera. I know if you have no one on the other side, it's frustrating, but what I do, here's a trick I do for Zoom, because I don't have all of you, I don't have your screenshots up. But what I do is I visualize the conference room and where all of you would be sitting. And then I kind of in my head say, okay, there's a question coming over here, question coming over there. I try to visualize what all of you look like. Kind of like this picture, except I'm doing that in my mind. You can have pictures up on your board. You can have it wherever, have pictures of people. Even better is if you can see them. You can see if they're smiling. The key is, as I mentioned earlier in my story, is the manager and the director's heads were nodding yes, and they were smiling when I was describing my experience. The human resource person, I looked at her and I could see the question mark on her face. Okay, I could see that. And I said, whoa, I talked to myself. I said, she's not getting it. So that's why I stopped my story and say, you know what, here are the skills that I used. It was an Army experience, but I civilianized it as much as I could. Rather than saying general and general staff, I was talking about C-level, senior management, things like that. And then when I saw her smile and nod her head, and of course say, I got it. Okay, that's what helped, all righty? And you have to do that. You have to watch your audience. And that's why it's so frustrating as one of you mentioned here, if they're all on a blank screen, you have no one to look at. And these video recorded ones, like a higher view, put a group shot of people behind you. Sometimes there's a person asking you questions. It depends on what platform they use. But put a group of people, like the screenshot here of a group of people at a conference table on, through someone's computer. Put it up there on the foam board behind you, so at least you're looking at people. And like here, all these people are smiling. Good, that helps you smile, and you can, look at all of them. These are little tricks, but it's all important of how you communicate, especially since you're not in person anymore. And the video recorded ones, I hate to say they're using biometrics, but they're watching your eyes, and I don't know, they're doing all sorts of crazy stuff with this, which to me is kind of not, I don't know, just they're watching, the FBI and CIA and all these people are trained to look at people's eyes to see if they're lying. Smile, just keep smiling. If you're thinking negative thoughts, then your body language, your head is down, your shoulders slumped, your tone of voice lowers to monotone, and then the words you choose are going to be very depressing. Versus if you're feeling good, go for a walk around the basement, go for a walk around the block or something, because what that does is it releases endorphins into the system. So now you're sitting up straight, alrighty? Now you have some energy, adrenaline flowing through you, so your tone of voice is going to have inflection, and then you're going to be more positive in the words that you choose, alrighty? Now, this is one of the job seekers sent me an email about 1.5 years ago. Says, I'm interviewing with, I think it was Caterpillar at the time. I have to do a recorded video interview, and I have 30 seconds to tell them why they should hire me. Well, this goes back to your elevator speech, your 30 seconds. So I wrote this out real quick for him, and I said, hi, my name is Jim Fergal. I'm really excited about this instructional design position at Caterpillar, because I can use my creative skills and my understanding of training and instructional design to help front-end staff understand processes, I don't know, whatever. I can use my top skills, and then you go to the job description to look at what those top skills are, because now you're tying yourself to them, to help Caterpillar make money, save money, increase production, or develop new products. Increase efficiency on the production line, all right? Whatever it is. Do you see how I did that? Then you have an example ready. As an example, at X, Y, and Z company, this customer had a problem, okay? If you're allowed to say who the customer was, great. I was called in because this is where your expertise comes out, to do what actions did you take, and then what was the end result. Okay, I'm going to take a break here to ask questions. Do you have any questions or comments about this? Put them in the question Q&A. Do you do this ahead of time? Do you have examples ready? Or has this helped you? I hope. Okay, you want me to go back one slide? Okay, there. To begin the interview, Jacine? Okay, my name is. I'm excited about this position. You have to use the job title that you're applying for. I can use my top skills. This is where you go to the job description. What are the top skills they're looking for? This is why I say, if you're going for a position that is not using your top skills, like data entry for me is not one of my top skills. And if the position is going to be doing a lot of data entry, why am I even interviewing for it? Okay. So you want to look at the position, make sure it aligns, and this is before you ever apply, make sure it aligns with you. Let me see what else here. So far, so good, very helpful. Let's see, the slide deck. I'll have to talk with my staff. This will be up on the website, okay? Let me go through here, anything else? How long, okay, Mike asks, how long do you recommend speaking for the initial tell me about yourself? Since you're on Zoom, if it's a video recorded and they say you got 30 seconds, guess what? You got 30 seconds. Shuts off. Again, you can go back to, here's why I want to work for this company. And, you know, as an example of something I've done in the past, you know, you can either wait for them to ask for that or you can throw it in at the beginning. All righty. Okay, I'm going to move on then. Certainly, you should be able to ask these, be able to answer these questions. Tell me about yourself. This usually doesn't mean where you were born, where you went to kindergarten, stuff like this. Just tell us about your background. What have you been doing recently? Your greatest strengths, again, where do you find that? Job description, okay? But there may be some other strengths that are related that they haven't talked about. See, this is why you have to read the job description. Sometimes there's, what's the word? It's not where they actually come out and say it, it's behind the scenes. I'm getting a brain cramp right now. Why did you leave your last position? If you've been laid off because of COVID, I don't think anyone's going to care. And a lot of companies, retail, restaurants, have been closing down. Ironically, articles I've been reading is that manufacturing has kept going. Of course, they switched over. You know, I think there was a distillery that switched over to making hand sanitizer. I guess you can't drink it. However, so it's going to depend. If you were furloughed, and some people have found jobs while they were furloughed. You keep looking. You might find a better job. Why is there a gap between jobs? Well, sometimes you have the COVID experience. Other times it's just, even if it's a great economy, it still takes you time to ramp up to figure out how to do a job search. I mean, what's the first thing that happens when you get laid off? What just happened to me? You got all this emotion, and then you're going to try to apply for unemployment. And then you learn that all the unemployment offices are closed. You have to go online. And I've gotten, you know, God knows, trying to get through the phone, right? And then once you got that done, then you know you have to look online for a job because that's what we've been conditioned to do. So you slap together a resume, you post it on Career Builder, Indeed, or something. You're getting a lot of calls from insurance companies or something like that, or recruiters you've never heard of. And then you start going on interviews that weren't a good match. And then you start really thinking about, well, I'd really want to do this. And then you start hearing about LinkedIn. Do you see what's happening? So sometimes there is going to be a gap because of the ramp up and everything you have to do. You can talk about what you have learned during the gap. Gosh, this thing, sorry. And if you had a gap, we just recently had a lady, she was off 20 years. I believe she was a project manager before kids, DC. She went back, came into our program. There's a thing called returnships that corporations are using now for returning to work mothers. I think they might have some stuff for dads. And they help you, they pay you while you get experience, and then you find out the right thing. And I think she just got hired about a month and a half ago. I hate this question, what's your greatest weakness? Because I don't want to say chocolate or kryptonite. But I guess people ask it because they want to see how you assess yourself. And what you have to look at, because this happened in an interview Siobhan and I were in, the lady, she dressed nicely. There was 3 of us in there, the HR, Siobhan, and myself. We asked her the weakness question. And afterwards, I said to Siobhan and HR, I really like this lady. And they said, are you crazy? She hates paperwork. That's the job. And I looked down, and this is the problem. This is why I have 2 or 3 people in interviews, is because I hate writing when someone is talking. I feel that's rude. But I have to record my answers, or your answers, if you're interviewing with me. So I was looking at her and writing, and when I looked down at what's your greatest weakness, I saw that I had written, she said, paperwork. You see, so that's why you're going to have a couple people in there, because if it's one-on-one, that interviewer is going to miss things. 2, 3, or 4 people are going to pick up little nuances. Same thing for you. You may miss something that other people have said. And your salary requirements. Of course, the usual is you want to postpone it. If they ask you this right off the bat, let's talk more about the position. If you have to, you can give a pay range, a salary range based on market research. Or you can throw it back at them and say, well, I'm glad you brought it up. What's your budget for this position? But you should always have a range available. Again, use stories, identify a skill, give an example or story how you've used that skill, and then what was the benefit to the previous employer or the customer. Identify an accomplishment. Tell us a story about that. Remember, problem, action, result for both of these stories. And again, what was the benefit to the employer or the customer? And this is where you use dollars, numbers, percentages. I saved so much money, all right, for the company. And on the positive note, summarize your selling points. I learned this from a HR manager who had come through the workshops, and he said, I always come in with 3 or 4 selling points to connect me to the position. And at the end of the interview, if they haven't asked me about all of them, I bring it up. I really think this, I really would love this position because, or my experience really will help me succeed in this position because, and they go 1, 2, 3, 4. Tell them why you want the position. I had an uncle in sales. He says, you got to ask for the sale. I really want to work here because, use that word, I want to work here because I'm really excited about this opportunity because I have the potential to do great things with you or to help you because. And that's when you start using your selling points. Thank them for their time, all righty? Ask what's the next step of the process. When do you plan to make a decision by? Will there be additional interviews? Do you mind if I follow up? Who should I follow up with? And then send them a thank you email afterwards. And the other thing is if you know, you can send them a regular, oh, why is this thing moving? Sorry. You can send them an old school thank you note. Some people still do that. I had a guy in the steel industry for a director position send a thank you note a few years ago to the owner of the company. And when the director walked in on his first day of work, that thank you note was sitting on the credenza of the owner's office. What you're looking at is every little thing can be an advantage for you. And how many times can you keep yourself in front of the employer? Keep your name visible. I know it takes time, but right now you have time. Okay. Before I get into all the advertisements of things coming up, let's go through any questions on anything. Okay, let me see here. Lindsay, I have a 2-year period at a job that was awful. I don't like to put it on my resume or speak poorly of the company. How do I deal with that? I also don't want to have a big gap on my resume. You put it on there. Okay, we have all had jobs. I had 2 jobs in insurance and recruiting. Did I want to put them on my resume? No. But did they filled the gaps? All righty. And, you know, I could say it wasn't a good fit. I wasn't really using my skill set. You know, you don't have to talk bad about the company. It's just a matter of, you know, once I got in the position, it wasn't all I thought it was going to be. You know, you can deflect a lot. You know, don't, you know, talk about how crazy the manager was, or they were cussing all the time, or crazy stuff like that. Just say, you know, it wasn't a good fit. And then you can say the skills that you're using. I mean, you know, if you're in a call center and you have to make 200 phone calls per day and you're not a phone person, but you took the job, that's not a good fit. It wasn't really using your skill set. When do you ask what the job pays, and how do you ask it? Again, I usually let them take the lead. And then, like I mentioned, if they're asking you for salary, you can throw it back at them and say, oh, I'm glad you asked. What's the budget for this position? That was Alfonso. Okay. Boom, boom, boom. Let me go through here. What do you say when the employer won't say the salary range? Do you say negotiable? Yeah. But sometimes, like my younger son, he was interviewing for a sales position, freight forwarding. He was interviewing downtown. And the lady, the HR person goes, you know, the next question, I need a number. And he threw it back at her, and she says, I know, but I need a number from you. And he says, based on my experience for this position, I'm coming in at entry level. The range is between here and here. And she said, yeah. You know, he didn't have to give an exact number. He tried to deflect, but they came back and said, hey, you got to do this. What if their range, this is Susanna, is lower than you expected and lower that your research indicates is a fair range for this position? This is where I like to use the words, would it be possible or would you consider? Based upon my experience, based upon the examples I told you of what I've done at previous companies, I have the potential to do some great things here. Would it be possible to relook at the salary? And let me give you an example of someone who was a diversity trainer that got laid off from McDonald's. So her name was Cha, and she was interviewing for a company downtown. Initially, she applied online, and the salary, they called her in the HR, she had to give her salary. So the human resource guy called her and said, you know, boy, I like your background. We could really use you, but we can't afford you. So what Cha did was she said, you know what? Let's not worry about salary at this time. Let's just have a conversation. Tell me about the position, and we'll just meet, just a conversation. Tell me about the position. Let me tell you about my background, and then let's decide whether we move forward. So he meets with her and says, okay, I'm going to get you an interview with the hiring manager. Now, the hiring manager told her about the position, which was very narrow. So she goes back to human resources or talent acquisition, says, you know what? Based on the conversation with the hiring manager, this isn't going to use my full set of skills, and let's just end it now. She really, really told me, she said, I really had to step out of my comfort level to say this. And the HR person says, listen, I'm going to get you an interview with the vice president because I want you to talk with her so you can hear her vision. So Cha goes in and talks with the vice president. And during the conversation with the vice president, the vice president, oh, that was the old hiring manager. The hiring manager, that was his previous job. That's not what the job's going to be. Here is my vision. Here's what I want you to do in this position. So here's how it ended up. First, from their initial salary, they came up $20,000 for Cha and added a $5,000 sign-on bonus. But see, that 20 grand increase put her at the top of the pay range. Okay, that salary band. So what Cha did was asked, would it be possible that we call it something else because there's no room for me to advance, you know, salary-wise. You can't get any more merit increases or pay increases. So what they did was they changed the job description, the job title for her as senior designer or something, which now gave her room for advancement, threw in one day, you know, remote work from home, you know, and you know, she said, I didn't even want to negotiate anything more other than she asked, because it was right before Thanksgiving, she asked if she could start the Monday after Thanksgiving. And I said, yeah, let's just have a conversation, okay? Michelle, yep, everyone hates the weakness in the salary question. Actually, they can't ask you what you are making in Illinois. Not all states, just Illinois and I think Massachusetts and New York, maybe California. But they can ask you what are your salary expectations, all righty? Salary expectations. Should you only list 10 years of experience on your resume? 10 to 15 max. I know some of you have been at companies, I had one guy 40 years. But really, what do they care about? What have you done recently? And as Jennifer always says, we don't need to go back to the disco ball era. And for some of us, we don't need to go back to the psychedelic era, you know, so especially if you're in the technical field, what recent technologies have you worked with? Okay, 10. Any suggestions on having to take cognitive ability, motivation, and personality online assessments? Yeah, they're geared for you not to lie. So someone says, how do I pass a personality assessment? I said, as long as you're breathing, you've passed. Is it the right personality for the position? You know, it all depends. You know, this was a sales guy, and it depends on the type of sales. I took one of those tests. You know, there's outside sales, inside sales, root sales. I was selling insurance at the time. And the guy said, he evaluated my assessment. He says, you hate what you're doing. He says, you shouldn't be in outside sales at all. And maybe, he says, this is a stretch, inside sales, but root sales, because you like developing relationships. All righty. So then that would tell me I'd have to do some sort of root sales. There is, I think, predictive analysis is a good online assessment. And then I have another one. I can't remember it off the top of my head. I'd have to look on my phone. But there's one that has you how many keystrokes they have you do different things, identifying patterns, identifying colors, and all this that relates to the job, and then they tell you your match. You just take them, you find out some interesting things. One of them said I'd be great with computers, and I'm like, really? Interesting. There's no way to know whether you're in the right personality, the right fit. You can try and lie about stuff, but if these assessments have been normed and validated, it's pretty much the questions are asked several different ways to verify that you're giving the right answer. I know my older son had to do one, and I wanted to find out everything that he was doing. My wife is like, leave him alone. He's got to answer these questions. Math, reading, arithmetic, all that good stuff. Zing Zang. I hope I said your name right. Could I say age is my biggest weakness to an interviewer? I'm going to say it with 2 letters. N-O. No. Okay. I don't care if you're too young or too old. You never use age. Okay. Because, so many people say, well, I'm being discriminated because of age. It's out there, If you're too young, you don't have the experience. If you're too old, you have too much experience, and you expect a lot of pay. Never use age. Okay, you might as well just shoot yourself in the foot. What you want to do, well, here's an example for weakness. You want to find something from your past that's not an important component of the position you're interviewing for. And talk about that. Like a weakness might be, I'm going to say for me, when I'm working on a workshop, I'm in my head. And I'll get up from my computer to go for coffee, and I don't acknowledge people when I'm going for coffee. I'm just in my head. So a manager brought that up in a performance eval that says, Jim, people think you're not friendly because you don't smile. I'm like, okay, what's that have to do with me doing the job? But okay. So what I learned from that is that I have to leave the presentation in the office, and when I leave the office, I have to talk to people. I make the coffee, I hang around the coffee pot, I engage with people. Here's what was said, here's what I'm doing about it, here's what I continue to do. I hope that answers the weakness. What if the range offered does not cover added expenses for the job? You can add them in, find out what's covered, what isn't. How about parking? If you're taking the train, how much is a train ticket? Going downtown is different than if you live in Naperville and work in Naperville. You have different expenses. So you should have different salary ranges depending on where you're going to work. Divya, I have more than a 5-year career gap. How do I tackle the question regarding a 5-year career gap? Well, without asking, sitting with you and talking, I don't know. I'm going to say it depends. You're going to have to address it. And if sometimes people take care of sick parents. Sometimes you get sick. Just said I had some personal issues. They're resolved now, and I'm ready to get back to work and help you solve problems and make money. Okay. The recording, Michelle, will be on our website next week. All righty. Okay. Thank you, Jim. Okay. Marietta, when filling out an application online, do I have to put what's your salary was? No, because they can't ask that in Illinois. Don't want to be disqualified because the salary I was making was higher. Again, Illinois, as of last October 1st, I believe, cannot ask you what you were making. Now, if you're working out of state, that's different. You can put $1, you can put 200, I don't know, you can put an outrageous number. Usually 99999 doesn't work and zeros don't work, so you can put $1 in. Let's see. Okay, okay, those. Oh, yeah. Chris puts in Ronald Reagan talking with Mondale during the debates. Great one, Chris. I will not make age an issue of this campaign. I am not going to exploit my opponent's youth and inexperience. You see, you got to keep stuff like that in your head. Great, that's fantastic. Okay. Let's see, Julia, I know you had your hand raised earlier. Have I answered all the questions? Next week, we'll be Navigate the Ride of Change with Dr. Maria Malater. RIDE has got, it each stands for a different component of dealing with change. On the 31st, we have Louisa Bueller talking about hurry up and wait. These are available for you to sign up at our website, worknet2page.org. Let us know when you have jobs. You can see that I've talked about some recent people that have gotten jobs, and as well as some experiences of people or people I know that have done interviews. So here's why we like, I was doing a practice interview with someone from Navistar at a veterans hiring event. And I said, let me practice my interview skills. So, you know, I was telling the guy what I do, and he said, but what are the results? And this is where I had to learn to quantify. I said, you know, I don't know. I see all these people at the beginning, but I never know when they get jobs. So he says, well, you better figure out some results. I was like, whoa. So 2 basic results were the grant. I've been here 25 years. Every year, in order for us to keep the grant at DuPage County, we have to have 70% of the people get jobs. We've made that 25 years. Then I also know that we've also made 80% of the people get jobs, because when we hit 80%, that means we get more money, we call it incentive money, to serve more of you. So that's why it's important for you to let us know when you get a job. Now, the other thing I had to do, okay, so now I got 70 and 80%, 25 years, my whole tenure. I had to figure out how many people I have served during my tenure. And so what I did was, okay, how many workshops have I done? They were every week, every 2 weeks. How many job clubs have I done? How many external? I came out, which could be a low number, 9 to 10,000 people. So what I do is I can say, I have helped WorkNet DuPage hit not only a 70%, but 80% placement rate by teaching job search and career exploration skills to over 10,000 people. But see, I had to do my homework to figure that out. Same thing for you. But this is why it's important for you to let us know when you get a job, the type of job and salary, because then we report back to Congress so that they can keep the program going. I've even gone to town halls with my representative and talk about what we do with the WIOA grant, Workforce Innovation Opportunity Grant. Plus, I like to know the story. You know, you all have interesting stories. You know, how did you find the job? What were the struggles? What was the victory like? How did you feel? What did you learn? The presentation will be recorded and will be posted next week on worknet2page.org. Here is the code to let your counselors know, those of you who are working with counselors. is VIDINT, video interviewing, 302. Okay, VIDINT 302. Just shoot them an email, and that will, part of the grant is that you keep contact with your counselor every month. So if you're in training, other than your timesheets, you can just send in this, email them, VIDINT 302, and that fulfills a monthly contact for you. Oops, I'm sorry. Okay, that's it. WorkNet.DuPage.org. If you are new, please go to Get Started. So you can sign up for Tuesday's webinar on how to get started with the grant, and they will explain the grant. And then that's my email if you have any questions. Certainly you can look me up on LinkedIn. We go back to the last slide. There you go, Pam. Send me a personalized LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to link in with you. Okay. Let's see if there's anything else. Here's the code, Pam. Yeah, Matthew, I know quantifying your skills is very difficult, but you got to do it. You see how I had to do it. So I don't know what you do, but you can shoot me an email and we can figure it out. Okay. Alrighty. Okay, I am going to end the seminar, and okay.